Over the past 2 weeks, South Africa has started to talk seriously about water, one of the most fundamental of all human rights. The deaths of the 4 protesters near Brits was some kind of a turning point in the debate. Now, with an election just around the corner, you can almost hear the volume going up, especially from all the politicians and the political parties. What Eyewitness News wanted to do was to cut through some of that rhetoric, to conduct its own investigation, to go out to all of the provinces and speak to people and see how they're living, what kind of water supply they have, and what kind of quality of water they're being forced to live with. So from across the country, all the way from Nkandla up to Polokwane, from the slums outside of Cape Town all the way to Pretoria, we went out into the communities and we spoke to people on the ground. In Mpumalanga, in areas like Imalahleni, you'll hear stories about people making fortunes from selling water to people. You'll also hear stories how water has to get cleaned through a chemical process to make it drinkable to people there.
Look, it's I think multi-dimensional, but the basic thing is since in the 90s, I think a lot of wrong decisions were taken. The infrastructure was not maintained properly, and very specifically, the infrastructure was not expanded.
It smells dirty and it tastes like it has a funny taste. Sometimes it's come with some black stuff in it.
4 years buying the water every day because it's dirty. It is good for washing, not for drinking.
At the same time in Shoshonguwe, people are making their own taps, running their own illegal connections to make sure that somehow or another they have water to drink.
If you need water in this place, you must not sleep, man, because people are busy with the water for the whole night. The whole night, people are talking. We can't even sleep. We can't even sleep.
And when we do the washing, most of the time, we use the water from the dirty drum. So it's not safe. The kids are always having diarrhea, so we don't know if... Yes, even us. You see, even the thrushes. Sometimes I use that water to bath. Yes.
Consider the history of South Africa and look at the numbers that are coming out of the latest census, and you'll see a story unfold where government, over the past 20 years or so, has almost doubled the number of households that have access to running water. But at the same time, since about 2005, there's a different picture emerging, and that is of less and less people reporting that the quality of water that they have in their taps is of a good enough standard, or in other words, it's water that they can drink. The South African Human Rights Commission has spent a tremendous amount of time investigating the water situation in South Africa. It believes that there is money and will to get the water to people and to make sure that it's drinkable. However, there's a breakdown somewhere along the line in terms of local government and the overseeing capacity of governments at provincial and national levels.
You cannot, all our findings, if you look at our findings, you'll see that we link, in relation to water and sanitation, we link what happens at the local level to the fact that provincial and national government are supposed to be also ensuring, having oversight. They're supposed to be having oversight on what is going on at the local level. You cannot say that the only time you pick up the problem is when there's a crisis, when people hit the streets.
Another massive problem is that 80 to 90% of the country's water is used by industry, by mines and other major corporations, and that's where the pollution comes in.
The question is, what is the responsibility, both on business and government, in terms of the regulation of wastage of water? We've heard of huge amounts of bulk water being purchased at a lower rate than households do. So business buys water at a lower rate, and then a lot of that water is wasted and then polluted. And so the issue of the regulation and the cleaning up of that water is essential.
The overwhelming consensus is that South Africa is facing a water emergency and that it's the poor who suffer the most. So the question that remains is, what will government do about it? Will it use its money and resources to resolve this crisis?